Hey everybody, Joel Rico here with the Language of Agreement. And every week I do a little 5 or 10 minute snippet just to give you a little tool, a little something you can put into play right away. So this week we're going to chat about assumption. So I'm sure at some point you've heard the saying that great salespeople assume the sale. Well, what does that mean that you assume the sale? Well, we all operate as if we know what's going to happen. So what does assume the sale mean? It means instead of showing up to a sales appointment, to a listing appointment, and saying, but what do you think? Are you going to hire me? Would you consider hiring me? Can I have the listing? That's assuming that you're going to get resistance. What if instead, by assuming the sale, you showed up and said, great, how soon do you need to be moved? Okay, and roughly what do you owe on the property? Great. How much do you think it's worth today? Okay, perfect. So if we had it sold, if we got a contract or got an offer for you in the next 4 weeks, would that work for you? Okay, great. Let's take a quick tour of the property before we fill out any paperwork. Let's take a quick tour of the property and see if there's any issues that need to be solved. And is it okay if we do that first? Great. So I'm just assuming that everything's going to work out fine, that we're going to move in a logical order, that the things that there's going to be little to no resistance. I'm just assuming it's going to work out great. And when I assume that things are going to work out great, they usually do. So that's one perspective on looking at the structure of assumption. Another perspective, I was talking to a dear friend of mine this morning who's a real estate agent, and we were talking about some issue that she was having in her business. And she said, oh, I'm having all these cancellations. I'm having a lot of withdrawals. I'm having a lot of cancellations. What do you think's going on? And I said, well, tell me about your process. Tell me about this. How's this working? She said, well, every time I take a listing, I sit down with my clients and say, here's the process. If you want to cancel, then, you got to give me a couple $100. It pays for my photographs, and it pays for this, and it pays for that. And this is how that process works. And I said, well, wait a minute. At your listing presentation, you're teaching people how to cancel the contract? She's assuming that there's going to be a lot of cancellations. And so because she's assuming there's going to be cancellations, she's acting as like, how do I deal with that? How do I cover my bases in case there are? So her assumption that she's going to have a certain percentage of cancellations is causing her to foreshadow the cancellation process during the listing appointment, which is naturally causing a higher number of assumptions, of cancellations. So this assumption not helping her. All right, one more way. So that's one way of looking at the structure, the context of assumption. So how is it that we can use assumption to our benefit in this process? Well, one way is to just speak them into reality. So in the entire curriculum of the Language of Agreement, there are 4 different types of linguistic assumptions. Let's see, I don't think we're going to have time to cover them all here in 5 minutes. That's not going to happen. I'll give you a little snippet. So one thing is to speak the outcome that I want to have come true. Let me say that again. To speak the outcome that I want to have true. So are you assuming there's going to be a problem? Are you walking into your listing appointment or sales appointment, whatever, assuming there's going to be a problem and you're ready to defend yourself? I'm going to go in there and here's my comps. I'm going to prove that I'm right. You're assuming there's going to be an argument. So because you're preparing for battle, most likely there's going to be a battle. What if instead you just assume that they're going to make rational decisions and they're going to look at the data in front of them and they're going to make decisions that make sense for them? What if you operated that way? If that's the case, or when that's the case, now my level of assumption is very different. Now my level of assumption is going to sound like, well, naturally, when you look at the prices at which houses are selling, and when you look at the prices at which houses are not selling, obviously you're going to choose the price that helps your house to sell. You want to be sold, right? Great. So before you sign a contract with me tonight, let's spend a few moments reviewing the contract or reviewing the comparables, and let's study the homes that are selling. And we'll take a look also at the homes that are not selling, and we'll get really clear on what it's going to take for you to be sold. I mean, that's why I'm here tonight, right? To help you get sold and to help you move to Idaho for you to build your dream house. That's the plan still, right? Great. All right, so inside of that, what were all those assumptions? Well, I assume that they're going to follow my advice. I assume that they're going to list with me tonight. I assume that they're going to look at the comparables and that they're going to base their price on the market. I assume that we're going to put more study on the homes that have sold and less study on the homes that haven't sold. I assume that we're going to be modeled after the homes that have sold because that's what they want. So do you see all these different layers of assumption? As you become more masterful at understanding the context of assumption, and that was one. By the way, there's four different styles of linguistic assumption. That was an example of one. So once you get more and more accustomed to using these assumptions in your language, in your presentation, then obviously you start assuming the outcomes that you want. And even without thinking about it a whole bunch, your clients will start to follow suit because I'm assuming the outcome that makes sense for them. So there's the little crash course in the structure of assumption. Again, in the entire language of agreement curriculum, there's four. We get nitty gritty of what's the structure of each one, what are the keywords of each one, how do you deliver each one. And as you start to use these in your presentation, in your daily communications, like magic, things just start working. People start saying, yeah, that makes sense. Great, where do I sign? As I assume that things are going to work out, things begin more and more to work out. So that's it. Our next language of agreement launch. If these tips are remotely helpful, if this was in the slightest bit insightful or helpful for you, then imagine what 12 weeks of live training and studying this would do for your sales process. I have many, many students that double and triple, quadruple their close ratio. That means no more marketing, no more Zillow leads, no, just close 3 to 4 times more of the people you're already talking to, right? That's the goal. So our next launch of the live teletraining workshop is April 10. That's just next week. So jump in, go to thelanguageofagreement.com. You can learn all about it. You get the sign up link. There's still some spaces in the class. Come join me and come find out like what's possible for you, for your business, for your life if you double, triple, or quadruple your close ratio. What would that do? If you were closing 4 times as much business with the same amount of work, the same number of appointments, the same number of leads, 4 times more business, what would that do for your business? What would it do for your life? What would it do for your self-confidence? So that's what we have to look forward to. Have a great week. Feel free to fire some questions here on the side. I'll respond to them here shortly. And until next time, go make a difference in the world. We'll see you soon.